Thank you, Professor Wilkins. Before I start, I want to say that I'm really glad being here among you in this beautiful country. And this is actually my first time here in Poland. And I would like to cordially thank the organizers for this impeccable organization and hospitality. So, with no further ado, before I start with my main topic, I will present to you a few aspects of alchemy and its literature in Byzantium to help you contextualize the subject of my presentation. Alchemy in Byzantium follows, systematizes, and expands the Graeco-Egyptian alchemical tradition. From some point onwards, it also interacts with the Islamic and medieval Latin traditions. The available sources for Greek alchemy, its Graeco-Egyptian and Byzantine branches, form two groups. The first consists of two papyri, the Leiden and the Stockholm papyri, which date around 300 AD and describe the primary technical phase of Graeco-Egyptian alchemy. The second group consists of manuscripts that contain the theoretical treatises and technical texts of Greek alchemy, dating from the 1st to the 15th century AD. This collection of texts, the so-called Greek alchemical corpus, is witnessed primarily in the following three codices: Marcianus Graecus 299, second half of the 10th century, Parisinus Graecus 2325, 13th century, and Parisinus Graecus 2327, 1478. The existence of partial collections in antiquity, although not unlikely, cannot be confirmed. We could conventionally arrange the text of the corpus in chronological layers. This is conventional, of course. The first layer comprises the work of Pseudo-Democritus, the oldest extant Greek alchemical treatise from the 1st century AD. It also contains treatises attributed to legendary or pseudonymous authors, probably written between the 1st and 3rd centuries. The second layer of the corpus consists of the works of Zosimos of Panopolis, who flourished circa 300, the most significant Greco-Egyptian alchemical author. The third layer comprises technical texts, but also treatises by subsequent commentators and authors, such as Olympiodoros the alchemist, Christianos the anonymous philosopher, Michael Psellos, and Nikephoros Blemidis. The term alchemy is used conventionally to describe a science or art that did not have a single name in Byzantine times. But what was alchemy for the Byzantines? The most celebrated synoptic answer is given by the late 10th century Suda lexicon, where chemia, one of the Greek terms roughly, I stress this, roughly corresponding to alchemy, is defined as the preparation of silver and gold. We know that since antiquity, alchemical objectives were broader, also including techniques for creating or imitating gems, pearls, and purple dye. Yet, the narrow conception of alchemy as gold making, chrysopoeia, and silver making, argyropoeia, became dominant in Byzantium. Alchemy's goal could be described as technical, but the theory behind this goal was philosophical. Therefore, alchemy applied philosophical principles in the laboratory, combining philosophical concepts with technical operations. Let's say the know-why with the know-how. Alchemy is an eclectic science in constant dialogue with philosophy, medicine, pharmacy, metallurgy, goldsmithing, etc. In this paper, I will use the alchemical references to wine lees, pheklē and trygia, as a case study of the common reservoir of substances used in medicine, cooking, and various artisanal crafts, such as those of metallurgists and dyers. I will not deal with the presence of the term in the medical literature, where, as you know, it is common, appearing, for example, in Galen, Dioscorides, Oribasios, and Paul of Aegina, among others. Notably, alchemical texts describe the use of plants, herbs, minerals, salts, etc., substances that were essential ingredients for various stages of the alchemical work. Therefore, it was perfectly reasonable that the descriptions of the different materials and substances were often drawn from the existing medical and pharmaceutical literature. In this way, the alchemical authors safely identified the names of substances mentioned in the alchemical recipes with their reliable medico-pharmaceutical descriptions. One such example can be found in the Leiden Chemical Papyrus Codex, in which descriptions of specific substances have been excerpted from Dioscorides' on Materia Medica and copied on the last 3 pages of the Codex, under the title From Dioscorides' on Materials. There are 11 entries from Dioscorides, each including a short description of a mineral ingredient, thus providing alchemists with a helpful tool for identifying the substances and their properties. However, it is noteworthy that only the part of the description identifying the substances has been copied, not the part with their therapeutic properties. Using pharmaceutical descriptions became more crucial since a substance's name was often used as a code name, the so-called deckname, to denote a different substance in order to confuse the uninitiated. The assimilation of diverse substances under one name, as well as using the decknamen, the cover names, became so frequent that at some point dedicated dictionaries were composed in Byzantium. Such a dictionary, the alphabetical lexicon of the Chrysopoeia, has survived. In it, we come across several entries referring to phaiklē and trygia. Here I am presenting the entries on oxoskinon and pheklē that read respectively. First, common vinegar is that obtained from litharge and lees, and the second one, pheklē. It is the lees of wine, the lime that develops the purples. It means the purple dyes. Perhaps it has already become apparent, especially from the second entry, that wine lees were used to make purple dyes. Indeed, the technical recipes in the Graeco-Egyptian chemical papyri aim primarily to produce, or rather imitate, gold, silver, gems, and purple dye, some of the most costly materials in late antiquity and Byzantium. The Leiden papyrus in particular hands down 2 recipes referring to the treatment of alkanet. Alcana tinctoria, or alkanet, is a herbaceous flowering plant whose roots are used to produce a red dye. The recipes are as follows. The first one, alkanet dilution. Alkanet is diluted with pine cones, the interior of walnuts, purslane, charred juice, wine lees, camel urine, and the interior of citrons. And the second recipe, it means another purple dye. Clean the wool with soapwort and have available lameral alum and the inside of the gallnut. Grind, throw the wool in a pot with the alum, and after putting it there, let it for a few hours. Remove it and let it dry. Previously, you will have followed this procedure. Having ground the wine lees and placed them in a vessel, pour in water, stir, let stand, then filter. Keep the clean water at your disposal in another vessel. Next, take alkanet, throw it in a vessel, mix with the water from the lees until it thickens suitably and becomes like sand. Then, throw it in a vessel, grind it by hand in the aforementioned water that comes from the alkanet. Then, when it has become viscous, throw it in the pot, add the remainder of the alkanet water, and leave until it has become lukewarm. Then soak the wool in it, leave it for a few hours, and you will find a stable purple. I just want to say that these are provisional translations, of course. We know that cream of tartar was used in traditional dyeing, where the complexing action of the tartrate ions was used to adjust the solubility and hydrolysis of modern salts, such as tin chloride and alum. And as you already noticed, the recipe mentions alum here. Phaiklē also appears in the work of Zosimos of Panopolis, late 3rd, 4th century AD. It is mentioned in a work of his that bears no title, dealing principally with the making of waters. Hydata, or waters, in alchemical jargon, are liquid substances that can change a material's color. Particularly, the term theon hydor denotes a water that we usually find in two forms, either containing sulfur or a mixture of several substances such as sulfur and lime. It is used for dyeing metals, having the ability to change the color of their surface. For example, we have the well-known recipe from the Leiden papyrus on how to make divine or sulfur water. I here mention both terms, both translations of theon, because the word theon is ambiguous, meaning both divine as an adjective and sulfur as a noun. The water in the said recipe is prepared by mixing sulfur, lime, and urine or strong vinegar. The recipe's outcome, and I assure you it works, since I have replicated several times, is that any silver surface can acquire a golden hue, which according to modern chemistry, this is due to the action of calcium polysulfides. To return to Zosimus' text, he lists liquid substances that can be used to prepare waters, such as sulfur, orpiment, realgar, urine, lees, etc. He then provides some combinations of substances that can be used for producing these waters. In another text of his, entitled On Divine Water, he similarly states, I'm going to read here just the opening and the closing of this excerpt. First of all, it is necessary to demonstrate that water of untouched sulfur is composed by mixing together all fluid substances and is called by the names of all the fluid substances. And he closes by saying, in conclusion, not wishing to read all the names, the name of every fluid substance. Some substances seem to be used literally in the passage, such as untouched sulfur water. Untouched here probably means free from any other component. However, other substances, such as black cow's milk, are certainly code names. Indeed, in the alphabetical lexicon of the Chrysopoeia, one can read under the letter gamma. The milk of a black cow is mercury from sulfur, and, the second entry, the milk of any animal is sulfur. Berthelot and Riel have interpreted the first entry as black mercury sulfide, hence the reference to a black cow. It is evident by now how a code name works, at least I hope it is. It indicates an actual property of the encoded substance. The presence of code names in the passage makes us wonder whether water of lees is meant here literally or as a code name. I believe the literal meaning is not improbable, since the use of lees in dyeing processes was well known, as I have already shown you with the Leiden papyrus recipes. Zosimos' references to pheklē are not unique. They are part of the Graeco-Egyptian tradition, using it as an ingredient for the so-called waters. For example, the letter of Isis to Horus, last 2nd or early 3rd century AD, presents alchemy as a secret knowledge of divine origin. It is revealed to the goddess Isis by the angel Amnael, who desires to make the revelation in exchange for sex. This is reminiscent, of course, of the Enochic literature. Be that as it may, a white pharmakon, drug, is mentioned, which can whiten all bodies or else make them silver. One of its ingredients, of this pharmakon, is phekle. Pharmakon here denotes the agent of transformation and is another piece of evidence for the affinity of alchemy to medicine. In the so-called Chemistry of Moses, some excerpts from Pseudo-Democritus, the most ancient alchemical author, 1st century AD, are preserved. Under the title Ilizomon, substances for the making of washes, that is dyeing liquids, we read, washes. These are substances that fall within washes: Cilician saffron, vinegar, urine of a virgin boy, seawater, quicklime water, water of cabbage ashes, water of lees, alum water, and finally dog's milk. I stress the two last sentences. These are the substances for the making of gold, These are the substances that change the matter. The alchemical author Synesius, first half of the 4th century, wrote a commentary on Pseudo-Democritus. There he comments on the above list of substances preserved in the treatise of Pseudo-Moses. He repeats several of them, including water of Lys, and then he states, he introduced, he means Pseudo-Democritus, the substances that can dissolve bodies, that is, soda water and water of Lys. This remark prompts us to recall the first recipe from the Leiden papyrus I presented today, entitled Alkanet Dilution. It is obvious that the knowledge about Lys of wine is embedded in an ancient technical tradition that late antique and Byzantine authors repeat. Pheklē is also mentioned by Stephanos of Alexandria in the 7th century in a similar context as one of the substances used for dyeing bodies. Finally, a recipe from Codex Parisinus Graecus 2327, which, as I said, was copied in 1478, describes how to give a nice color to gilded silver. Take 3 parts of sulfur, 2 parts of clean Monemvasian wine lees, 1 part of salt, grind well and let them boil well in water. Next, place the silver in the middle and let it stand for the duration of a paternoster. This means until a paternoster is recited, of course. Then remove it, put it in a clean cold water and brush it. The trygia, the wine lees of Monemvasian wine, appears again in a variation of the aforementioned recipe in the same manuscript. The alchemical recipes in the 15th century Holchamicus Graecus 109 contain a third reference to Monemvasian wine lees concerning a silver plating method. References to lees of Monemvasian wine are exciting. Apart from the properties which the specific variety might have, we should consider that it was one of the finest. Therefore, its name was possibly a synonym for wine of the best quality, even for a byproduct like wine lees. It is no coincidence that these references to Monemvasian wine occur in the 15th century Parisinus Graecus 2327 and not in an earlier manuscript, since the first known written testimony referring to this wine dates to 1214, as Ilias Anagnostakis has already shown. And I'm going to close now. My examination of the lees of wine in an alchemical context was far from exhaustive, but I hope that it is evident that either as pheklē or as trygia, this substance was primarily used for dyeing materials so diverse as wool and metals. Its use is embedded in the Graeco-Egyptian alchemical tradition inherited by the Byzantines. But why should we bother about the lees of wine? I believe there are 2 answers to this rhetorical question, one for the broader historical community and one for the historians of alchemy. The first is quite simple. Alchemical knowledge about the properties of wine lees, or let me say of every other substance, complements the medical and culinary one and showcases the potential that the study of alchemy has in this respect. The second reply originates from personal thoughts on the history of alchemy. Nowadays, many historians of alchemy study it exclusively through the lens of philosophy and the history of ideas. Although this is a valid and worth pursuing approach, I think the study of Byzantine alchemy should entail both its philosophical and technical aspects. Even a small step, like the study of an ingredient, helps us better understand the way alchemy was conceived and practiced, but also its affinity with other fields of knowledge and lore. Thank you very much.